I mean, coincidentally,
could it be higher or could it have gone down?
Well, it could be 50-50. I mean, it could be higher. It could have gone down, but theoretically, I think it's higher. Because it's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today. We don't have an accuracy of the figure in place to actually be able to measure what is the percentage 2 years up to date. Because if you look at the general perspective of people and how things goes on in the country, you could tell theoretically that the employment rates obviously have risen. I mean, far beyond what it was in 2011.
All right. Well, I must say that the issue of unemployment is actually a global concern.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and when we compare what we have in Nigeria to other African countries,
yeah,
you'll find out that the story seems to be the same. For instance, in South Africa, unemployment rate increased to 25.30%.
Yeah.
That was in the first quarter of this year. Now, from 24.90% in fourth quarter of 2012. In Kenya, it recorded an all-time high of 40% in December 2011. However, Ghana recorded an unemployment rate of 11% in 2012. What's your take on these figures? I mean, comparing it with what we have here in Nigeria.
The population. I mean, looking at that population of 166 million, compared to what we have in Ghana, compared to what we have in South Africa, I mean, that will be commensurate with what the number of people, I mean, as per country, individual countries. I mean, but having said that, I think governance is actually need to play a key role in here. And of course, if that is not being looked into, like I said earlier, then of course, it's a big issue to actually, but like from the answer to what you asked me is the populace has a key place to play in there, because we are quite much populous than the rest of the other African countries.
All right. Unemployment rate is said to be increasing at the rate of 16% annually. You know, from your own opinion, looking at the whole thing, what would you say is the root cause of this?
Fantastic. I did, or I conducted a research over the years while I obviously came back into the country. And there are a catalogue of issues that are actually I've been able to identify. I mean, the few times I've been in this studio, of course not on this business morning, I've actually spoke about quite a few, one of them, but unfortunately the time doesn't permit me to actually expatiate on the various issues. But from here, I mean, if I could take it one at a step, I mean, we have, if you look around now, the question is, how many institutions, tertiary institutions, universities do we have in this country? I mean, there are numerous of them. Now, every single, I mean, not to exaggerate, day, week, month, you have tertiary institutions springing up everywhere. Now, my take is this: we have too many unregulated tertiary institutions, universities in the country, both public and private, okay, and turning out low-quality graduates every year. Now, if you look at the number of university graduates that's been turned out, I mean, because I was listening to one of your comments you made earlier before I came onto this program, that you have the NYSC turned out 3 sets of, I mean, that is worrying. I mean, that would tell you, I mean, do we just want to turn out number of graduates every year without having a structure, what's going to happen to them in the future?
Now, what would you say is really the problem? Now, you're talking about the educational system. Does it have to do with our curriculum?
That is one of it, or one of them, actually. Now, if we have, I'll give you a typical example. You see, in other well-developed countries, what actually happens, the government actually have control of how many people actually been taken into universities on a yearly basis. And all these universities are being monitored, are being controlled. Now, in this country, we always believe everybody has to go through universities. Now, university is not for everyone. What is happening to our technical education sector? What is happening to our College of Education, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I remember talking about technical schools.
Yeah.
I remember far back then, there used to be, I mean, if you can't get into the normal tertiary institution, you go to a technical school.
Of course, yeah.
Where are those technical schools now?
All disappeared, or just been neglected. Now, one thing also that I found out there is there's discrimination between classes of tertiary education. If you go to university, they're going to think you are the topmost graduates in there. Now, they tend to look at you as higher than someone that goes to
a polytechnic
or technical education. Now, you see, that's why I said the government has a role to play in there. Now, this institution have been designed for various reasons.
Exactly.
You go to university, now if you want to go through the technical way of life, then of course you could go through the polytechnic, College of Education, and so on and so forth. Now, if the government doesn't have to, doesn't look into this critically, then we're going to be having all this issue. Now, if you go to university and someone goes to College of Technical College, when you come out, you are obviously of different quality. I mean, you go through the technical way of learning, and the other one goes to university. It doesn't mean because you went to university, you are more superior than someone that went to the polytechnic or college of education, because they were being set up for different purposes. So university is not for everyone. But the government needs to look into all this. I mean, to be able to tackle this is one of the roots of the causes of this unemployment.
Well, still talking about the educational system, you have just mentioned the tertiary.
Yeah.
What about the primary level, the secondary level? Far back when I was in primary school, I remember we had what we call the handiwork, where we're asked to go home, do some little painting, the sculpture, you know,
do some beading and
sewing
and
exactly, and even the broom. You know, that we have to return back to school, and that, of course, is part of the assessment.
Absolutely.
You know, I realize that most primary schools these days are no longer doing that. What exactly would you say is the issue there?
It used to be part of the national curriculum, but these days it's all been taken out.
Is it that they didn't see any value in those things then?
I'll tell you,
that perhaps it has to be dropped from the curriculum?
I'll tell you one of the reasons why this is disappearing. You see, in those days, I remember, we used to have education inspectors.
Yeah.
We used to have courses regulators and inspectors who goes around the schools and actually see that all this curriculum are being properly implemented and being carried out to all purposes. But these days, it's nothing like that. So nobody wants to really go into that. And some schools and some parents, there are catalogue of issues, parental influence and so on and so forth. They think when you do all those things, you are not really an elite person or going through the elite system of education, which is wrong. So people just go through theoretical part of education, and when they finish, they know nothing than what is been written, they've read about.
All right, so why, in your own opinion, do you think most Nigerian youths would rather go for a white-collar job rather than being productive on their own?
Two major factors. I will blame the parents, and I also blame the government. Okay? Now, starting from the parents, parental influence. You see, most of our parents would tell their children that I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to be this and that, without actually trying to find out what is the equality that this child has or possesses. Now, when you force a child to go and study what he or she is not really fundamentally or naturally meant to study, then of course there's a failure waiting to before that child. Now, if somebody, I'll give you a typical example. What is wrong in a parent saying, I want you to go and study plumbing and become a professional plumber in the future? What is wrong in saying to a parent telling a child, I want you to go and study electrician? Right? All these are technical way of actually engaging people that at the end of the whole technical education, they become a professional. But white-collar jobs has become a systemic thing that it's mentally, draining the society, that people just want to say that I want you to become this, I want to become that, without looking at the
Even
impact.
Apprenticeship is now gradually disappearing, because you hardly get into a mechanic shop, workshop to see an apprentice, a youth,
Yeah.
you know, learning the job, or get into a tailoring